Hallo miteinander, I'm Geshidi6, and this is not a Touhou fan game for a change. Can you believe it? Something that isn't Touhou made it onto my channel. Don't Escape 4 Days to Survive reminded me of how much fun point-and-click adventure games can be, and how much of a shame it is that I barely ever play any nowadays. We're going to pick Custom Game, which is a new game with advanced options. I off-screened that configuration because it is pretty spoiler-tastic. You don't get to play Custom Game mode until you've seen the true ending. The game starts with very little explanation. Who are we? What is this place? And why are we here? Left-click interacts with objects, right-click inspects them to give you more detail. And we have been mauled by spiders. Game over! Nah, it was all just a dream. We are David, and we live in the post-apocalypse. The game won't let you do anything until you've picked up your backpack, which acts as an inventory. Not only do we have a limit of 20 items at a time, but also a weight maximum that stops us if our baggage gets too heavy. Before we leave the screen, we'll be interrupted and learn that our dream was no cheap and random scare, but prophetic. That is the gameplay loop of Don't Escape. You always get to know what you have to fend off. In our specific case, it is a pack of mutant spiders. I apologize to any arachnophobes among you. This is our journal. It allows you an overview of the story and notes down any meaningful events and actions of ours. The area ahead of us is kind of a tutorial. It teaches us to run and to slide along the ground like we're Michael Jackson. No, it doesn't. That was just a small glitch. Basically, the next few minutes are really simple and straightforward. We cannot make any bad decisions for a while. Here we find out that Don't Escape operates on a time system. You don't want the evening to hit you while you're out in the open, or when you haven't done everything you have wanted to do. Luckily, it is not a live timer. You can dawdle and be confused all you want. The clock only advances on specific actions like this one. We yank out this wooden pole and combine our first two items to make a sledgehammer. Like I said, it's a very basic tutorial, but you can't assume everyone to have played a point-and-click adventure game. Coming up though is something very specific to Don't Escape. We must lay down the sledgehammer we have made, otherwise we would be too heavy to successfully wade through the sand dunes up ahead. Into the wasteland we go. In a moment we'll be subject to another time deduction. It's a whole 50 minutes and there is no way to get around it. At least it starts a very somber scene that you can skip, but we won't. Armor Games was involved here. Don't Escape does give off this Newgrounds Flash vibe. We see a broken moon. No, Suika did not do this. She is not the main villain of this game. I really like this delayed introduction. It communicates well that this is no random desert, but the state of humanity. It's all very depressing and succeeds with its music in creating a sense of hopelessness. A bit more trivia. Originally, this game was sold as Don't Escape 4 Days in a Wasteland. Then it required a legal name change because of the Wasteland franchise. It's a perfect example of how kooky current copyright regulations are. A single word in a sentence is a problem when clearly there was no intent of plagiarism. A CRPG this is not. Meanwhile, we've arrived at a farmhouse with barn. Our objective now is to get into said farmhouse, but even something as simple as that is hidden behind a small puzzle. We just grabbed a light green pipe, which is really all what we need. We're not allowed to do much else in the barn right now. We should remember that the pipeworks were damaged and that they need some fixing later. To the left is a water sprayer, an optional item that nonetheless can be potentially helpful. Inspecting the greenhouse reveals to us that there is probably a way to remove the nails that have been processed into it. So how do we get into that building? Naturally, both doors are locked. If there are any burglars among you, you probably know what to do. I really hope there aren't. We just bash in that window. Bam! Thus, we squeeze ourselves into what is easily the most important room of this game. It's not just where we have our storage box, but it's also David's definitive shelter. If you click on the clock in the top right corner, you will initiate the night. Most times you will either do this here or upstairs. The game is very particular about that. Even the wrong room can have big consequences. Inside the mentioned storage box is already an item. The way that hammer is, though, it's not helpful. It needs a new handle. In the kitchen, we'll find an object of convenience. We'll use these house keys to unlock all doors for now, but we may have to lock them again later. I'm unsure if it makes a difference against our current pursuers, the spiders. I imagine they will bash their bodies against the doors, and having the locking bars in place might help. There's another scenario later where you've got desert bandits. Can't have a post-apocalypse Mad Max style without those. The raiders do have hands and also a brain to use a door handle, so you may want to lock everything. Despite their description, paper sheets do have a one-time use, but I can't recall what the paper clip is good for. Perhaps it's a secret solution somewhere. There are indeed alternative ways to handle some of the problems you encounter, and maybe I just don't know about that one. We are going to stash everything we don't need for now, including our house keys. Inventory management in Don't Escape is a big hindrance, but it's not as obnoxious as it could have been. A good rule of thumb is to keep all handyman's tools on your person. You can't know in advance what exactly you will need, but those tend to be used multiple times. Too bad we don't have fuel on hand for the generator, but at least we've set the dial to the water pump. That's what we'll need. David has to check the car in order to have any chance at repairing it. Through that, we find out what we need: a wheel, an ignition coil, and even more fuel. I think we've spent enough time at our new home. It's time we go out and explore the surrounding areas. We can head either east or west. Traveling always takes time, so you never want to needlessly wander. Anything here? Ooh, a spade. Let's grab it. Correction. It's a piece of a spade, but it's just the piece we need for our ruined hammer. If we had something else, we could put that hammer to use on those wooden planks, perhaps later. Just checking how light we are. Of course, our bag is mostly empty. We've got another deduction of time at our hands. This one will have to be repeated every time you cross. On the other side lies the creepiest location so far, a gas station covered in spider webs. Maybe it was just Peter Parker, far from home. No, we know better than that. David will not suicide himself on that 8-legged monstrosity. Sierra didn't develop this, scriptwelder did. David will also refuse to do anything else in that room, so we need to do something about that nasty crawler. The solution is in this side building, but we lack one more item to reach it. It's the most boring and mundane object imaginable. Let's check out this tanker. That one's very important too. You'll likely interact with it a lot over the course of your adventure. How about we crack the spider's chitin with this rock? Could work, but you know these games can't inflict blunt trauma with blunt ideas. What we really need is a distraction, a noisy one. There, the critter has switched rooms and we can help ourselves to all the valuable stuff. Of course we grab the rifle first, a boy wants his toys. Any help for the cocoon fellow here is all too long overdue. When we pocket these dollar bills, David himself questions their usefulness. There is, however, one scenario in which they are helpful. The hammer is necessary to get this crowbar, but the action will take 5 minutes instead of 1 if done by hand. I really appreciate these alternatives, where you get bonuses for being practical. Makes you feel so smart. We find a cigarette lighter, a sadly empty gas canister, and loads of lore. We saw the moon earlier and it was kind of a mess. That wasn't just a random shocker, but a very significant plot point. Apparently a major corporation called Sidereal Plexus was involved. And in the end, governments told the world's population to remain calm. Oh yes, remaining calm sure did a lot of good for them, didn't it? Yikes! First instinct is the best instinct. Shoot the damn thing. You can potentially suffer death there, but Don't Escape is not at all archaic in that regard. A oops, I didn't save in the last half hour can't happen. You'll just revert to a few seconds prior. We need this metal grating, as much of it as we can carry. Unfortunately, each piece is really heavy, and that can lead to an upcoming problem. Notice how it's suddenly 13 whole minutes to get over the dried up river. The game explains that we just have too much on our person. The smart thing to do is to simply drop some items. Nothing ever despawns over time or from you leaving an area, and wouldn't you know it, now it's just a measly 4 minutes. And we did transport that metal grating one screen closer to our hideout. That's at least slightly worthwhile. The most important item from the gas station was the crowbar anyway. That one's a permanent stay, you'll need it for so many activities, and here's one already. Demolishing the greenhouse for lumber and nails. You can do this 4 times, then you're out of greenhouse. You don't need the lumber on the first day, but oh do we so need those nails. We'll pocket them immediately. I should have talked about the most defining feature of Don't Escape by now. This first day will not always be about spiders. It could also be man-eating locusts that are after David, or a corrosive gas cloud might be sweeping the lands. All this affects item locations and puzzle solutions, and a good example is our next screen, the roadblock area. These webbed up corpses would have had a different cause of death in the other scenarios, and the clues we get from them would be vastly different. This bite mark is no mere fluff, remember it closely. 2 large pincers on the outside, 4 smaller ones in between. Got it. It's hard to say whether it's wiser to go west or east first, but a case for this direction would be the wrench we just tucked away. It's absolutely vital for much of the handwork ahead of us. This note won't answer many questions, but it is a clue to a secret weapon somewhere. Remember the rubbish car we had at the barn? Why don't we just take this one? Obviously it's never that easy, yet they're part of the same puzzle. We can extract an ignition coil from this heap of junk. That'll be one less ingredient to worry about. No, it's not the crowbar again. The wrench is the tool of choice here. We won't leave with just that. There is another screen to inspect. In a moment we'll see that it has a very detailed foreground. Something amuses me about this bony lad here. It must be a kind of nostalgia. Back in the day, LucasArts always put so much effort into their foregrounds. Because we have the crowbar, we can enter the truck and get a couple of bear traps. We won't be catching any bears with them, I assure you. The first locker is full of loot, but beware. Some of those items are bad stuff. They will yield poor results if utilized. We'll pay them no mind for now and get some duct tape instead. Was scriptwelder sponsored by duct tape? Probably not, but it still sounds like a commercial. If you can't fix it, you didn't use enough duct tape. Finally, we get to a note that's been hinted at, and this one's crucial. Look at these spidery doodles. Examine them. What are the two things that make them unique? A number and the structure of their fangs. The second from the right has two big ones on the outside and four little babies on the inside. A18 it is, and that's the only repellent we'll take. The rest can only lead to disaster. With that, the roadblock is stripped of all important things. You wouldn't be coming back here, not on day one. Let's go back to our lonely, lonely home. David is not the last person on the planet. Apart from the mentioned raiders, other characters can be encountered. You can become their friends and see them go. Yes, certain actions will get these people killed. Both bear traps have been set. Don't worry, you can't clumsily catch yourself no matter where you click. Your character isn't that stupid. Alright, we learned early on that the pipes were damaged. We repair them with lots of duct tape, so much of it that it took a whole 5 minutes. Installing the new ignition coil takes thrice as long, but all that isn't worrisome. We have enough time and we're not really wasting any. We should get rid of some of our baggage. For a lot of it, we don't have immediate use anyway, like the nails. We'll leave a single set on our person, the rest will be used on the house itself. Keeping them in the box is undoubtedly smart. Don't need the sticky note, we know what's on it anyways. Was there anything else? Don't think so. We have enough free spots. Heading out again, we are tackling a problem that would ail us over the whole game. Isn't it annoying that we always have to spend time at the riverbed? No more of that, we are building a footbridge. It takes 90 minutes now, but it'll save us time in the long run. This tipped over pickup truck is our source for the spare wheel. The only thing missing to start our car now is fuel. By the way, if you use the hammer and nails on the planks again, you can widen the bridge to allow said car to get over it. However, there is a caveat to this. I recommend you don't complete the bridge on the first day if your scenario is that of the spiders. More on that later. So how do we get our precious fuel? Using the gas canister is not enough, that only puts it in place. The valves need to be opened with the wrench. Get used to repeating this action. Fuel is used for many appliances, and here's one of them. We can fill the water sprayer with it, and then use the lighter to craft a makeshift flamethrower. Quite an obscure puzzle, isn't it? The flamethrower is optional, but also the best weapon against the spiders, and the locusts as well, if you are facing those. Getting it is so far-fetched that you receive a separate Steam achievement for it called Pyromaniac, which not that many people actually have. I've got to stress it's optional and not even that important because of another game mechanic, which is perfect results. If your defenses and precautions are enough to thwart the calamity of the day, as in no spider would even reach David and he could just lazily sleep in like there's no danger, that's a perfect result. Perfect results grant you Steam achievements and will raise your carrying weight limit for the rest of the game. Speaking of weight, the flamethrower is so heavy. To Elon Musk's despair, we must leave that genius contraption behind. Fetching the metal gratings has a much higher priority. Like I said, perfect results are great, so ideally David won't even use the flamer. We're finally about to get our car running. Just so you know, it's only a tool of convenience. No puzzles require you to have a working car. You can actually beat the whole game without it. I've done it before. On the world map, driving will be 2.5 times as fast as going on foot, and the car is even a sort of mobile storage box, containing 12 spaces with no overload limit whatsoever. You can put a lot of junk in your trunk. Yup, it's wonderful. Not so wonderful is that you do need to resupply the car with gas occasionally. The initial fill won't last you forever, and it's perfectly possible to get stranded somewhere once the map opens up more and more. We've got a bunch of item transportation ahead of us. During this downtime, let's talk about the name of this game, Don't Escape. If you think too hard about it, it sounds kind of dumb, doesn't it? If you don't need to escape, what's there to worry about? All of it makes perfect sense if you know the plot of the first game in the series. In it, your character has lycanthropy. Your objective is to lock yourself in a cottage and further restrain yourself so that you don't escape and wreak havoc upon a nearby village after you've transformed. By the way, Don't Escape, 4 Days to Survive, is the 4th game in the series. See what they did there? The next load of fuel we're now getting is not for the car, but for the big puzzle of the day. With that, we have everything from the gas station that was vital. The bag of charcoal isn't necessary on the first day. The other objects are also not helpful. I'll just pick up one of each anyway so that we can talk about them. They are a bug net and a plastic wrapping. Depending on your scenario, one of these is the best option. The locust swarm gets caught up in the net. The grating we already had is made of steel, the only material sturdy enough to resist the massive spiders. And the wrapping, feeble as you might think it is the only airtight cover among the 3, and therefore meant for the corrosive gas cloud. Our survival depends on the barn's power generator. After feeding it some juice, we crank it up. I said we crank it up. You know, one could be annoyed that the game makes you pull the cord 3 times, but as someone who owns a lawnmower, I find it very relatable. The dial was already on the water pump, which is what we're configuring next. We have to set it on overnight irrigation and solve what is easily the hardest puzzle of day one. Welcome to Let's Take a Look at Professor Layton and the End of the World. We need to get all 8 tiles glowing. Every click changes not just the targeted tile, but all of the ones adjacent to it. Bad moves will at best get you nowhere, and at worst destroy progress you have already made. I must admit I don't have this down to a science. I know the kind of situation you want to create, like for example if you have 3 pieces left offline in a corner you have basically won. There are people out there who you can show a setup to, they'll think for 10 seconds and then have it solved in a few perfectly planned clicks. I'm more the sort of person who tinkers around with a puzzle until the solution hits me. All that should be evident from our chaotic and fast clicking. Will you believe me when I claim that I usually get this done faster? Please? Well, there we go at least. I swear I have half a brain cell, not a full one, not being unreasonably boastful here, just half, 0.5. You can give me that, right? All of that hassle would have been for nothing if we forgot this next step. The spiders don't simply fear water sprinklers. The aromatic repellent A18 had to be inserted. What's so interesting about Don't Escape is that it rarely explicitly tells you that you've done a puzzle the right way. Like if we forgot to fix the pipe or picked the wrong repellent. You would only learn of your mistake once it was too late. We've now made it to the point where we have done nearly everything we can. Come that time, you should start thinking about what you can do with any spare hours that you have. Maybe you can do things that will help you on future days. For example, it's recommended to always end a day with a full fuel canister. Almost all scenarios require the barn generator, and it will have always run dry on the following morning. We could also improve the bridge here, but like I said, that's not actually too clever. You would run out of nails. We only had 4 nails. I don't know if there are any secret ones to find. I doubt it. And we need them to barricade the windows. That is our next big objective. To fasten the metal gratings to the windows, you could use said nails or simply duct tape. However, duct tape is suboptimal. The spidery buggers are just too strong. One of them would always rip through and make it into the house. That's why we can't waste any more nails on the bridge. On the morning after, you can actually recover your nails from what is left of the barricades. You never need as many nails again, so that's when you can complete the bridge. Just not today. We've got a lot of hauling ahead of us, back and forth between car and house. No way we can get around that. The construction of home defenses aspect of Don't Escape has become iconic for it since Don't Escape 2. That one had a The Walking Dead-esque scenario of repelling a zombie horde. That one had a broken outer gate to secure, a front door to lock, and also a side window that you couldn't just leave the way it was. We are now in a kind of similar situation. Real spiders have no trouble scaling a 90-degree wall, so the top floor bathroom and bedroom windows are an issue. Before any of that though, the doors have to be closed. Don't forget those. That seems like such an unnecessary thing to say, but I bet loads of players have recklessly skipped to the night. Then the game said, "Oops, the doors were wide open, have fun getting devoured." Like I said, not sure if locking makes a difference, but better safe than sorry. That is the second window we are boarding up. That always takes 20 minutes. Of course, we are not at all in danger of running out of time anymore. If that does happen and you're not at your hideout, it should be no surprise that's a guaranteed game over. And we're all done. I believe that was everything. Just to show it off, here's our journal again. Every little action that improves your chances appears there with a timestamp, for example the setting of bear traps. How's our inventory looking? Mighty fine. The flamethrower is there, so it'll become a possible weapon. Let us start. How well are we going to do? Here's the evaluation screen, and I love it. Every Don't Escape game has them, and they're the absolute highlight. Watching them is so thrilling to me. We've got a huge bar on top with a vertical slice of David on it. If the meter stops on his right side, the skeleton side, we are dead. Should it hold on him or further to the left, we've made it through the night. The whole sprinkler maneuver deducted a whopping 6 spiders. The bear traps only caught 2, but they did take much less effort. How would you catch more than 1 spider with each anyway? Massive things wouldn't fit. It's too bad Yamame Kurodani isn't among our predators. Then we just have to shout out the window that her butt's large and that she's placing really low on the Touhou popularity polls. Then she'd leave in tears, 1 spider deducted. It's now checking whether all windows have been barricaded. They were. Already twice it told us that 0 out of 4 spiders made it through. Good thing we didn't have to resort to that duct tape. And would you look at that, 0 spiders left. That was the perfect result we were aiming for, and I think we'll leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed, and if this video intrigued you, do try the game out for yourselves. I learned of it through YouTube and watched a Let's Play in a manner of TV zapping until I got too curious and bought it. That was the right way to go. Believe me, this is way more exciting when you're at the wheel. Great flying there, Cate. Until I played it, I didn't know how starved I was for a good adventure game. I would have never guessed. With that, I'm Cate86. This was Don't Escape, 4 Days to Survive. Bis bald.